Hello there and welcome. As always, you can call me Mikhail or Michael. And before I start this video, I want to say thank you all who decided to support me financially, be it through Patreon, PayPal or Super Thanks. I also want to say big thank you to those who supported me by commenting and expressing concern in the comment section all throughout this month when I was sick. It really did help me emotionally to go through my sickness. Thank you all for your love and support. And let's move on to the situation in the Russo-Ukrainian war. Of course, first things first, let's discuss the situation within the Kharkov Oblast. As you know, a few days ago, Russian forces launched a long-awaited offensive in the direction of a second biggest city in Ukraine, which is Kharkiv, or as Russians call it, Kharkov. Initially, Russians opened 3 vectors of attack, but then at some point, 2 of them merged, forming a single, united front. First, of course, let's discuss the situation on the Kharkov direction. Here, Russian forces continued their offensive operations around the village of Glibke, which they have recently captured, as well as around the village of Luk'yantsi. Situation in the village of Luk'yantsi is most interesting. If we zoom in, we can see that literally just few houses and farms are left. And as recent report suggests, Russians have successfully captured this village completely. With the fall of Luk'yantsi, as well as the village of Glibke, the path towards Liptsi is now open. To me, it seems Russians will attack this city from 3 different directions. At first, I'm sure they will launch some assaults along this road. Those assaults are meant to, so to say, test the waters, see how well Ukrainians are defended here in this area, and how quick they can use artillery in attempt to stop the Russians. This attack will happen, of course, after Glibke will be fully captured by the Russians, which will then allow them to attack and start storming this, what would seem to be small residential or dacha area. This will be done in support of these attacks. Then, of course, Russians will surely use Luk'yantsi to attack across this general area, which, as you can see, is full of small forests, forest lines, and lowlands, which will allow Russians to advance here in this area somewhat safe under the cover of thick foliage. Of course, Ukrainians will not sit and wait, and will most certainly counterattack the Russians, as they are currently doing now, all across this sector of the front. Currently, Ukrainians are trying to counterattack with all they can, but it seems those efforts are fruitless. No matter how hard Ukrainians are trying to stop the Russians, they are unable to do so ever since the offensive has begun. In the background of all of this, both Russians and Ukrainians are engaged in artillery duels and counter-battery activities. For example, here on this video, you can see Russians spotting Ukrainian rocket system Grad and were able to successfully destroy it with a Lancet drone. The destruction of such deadly artillery rocket system will surely help Russians to advance with lesser casualties. It also seems that Russians were able to win the battle in the sky, as they continuously and heavily bombard Ukrainian positions along many forest lines in this sector of the front line, as you can see here on this video. Not going too far from this sector, let's discuss the situation around Ukrainian village of Zelene. As you can see, calling it a village is a bit of a stretch, as it is simply just few streets, but nevertheless, a settlement is a settlement. Information coming from this portion of the front is most confusing, as a lot of sources are reporting an absolutely different information. For example, mostly pro-Russian and neutral sources are reporting that Zelene fall to the Russians, and that the Russians are now starting to storm the village of Neskuchne. While on the other hand, as you can see, the village remains in Ukrainian hands. The fall of Zelene is just the beginning, as with its fall, Russian forces again will be able to storm Neskuchne, and with it will be able to solidify the front line up to the Luk'yantsi village. And after the front line is solidified all across this line of contact, village of Vesele, which is much bigger than village of Neskuchne, will be the next logical target for the Russians to attack. The question is, what will happen first? Russians reaching Liptsi or Russians reaching Vesele? If Russians reach Liptsi first, they will be able to assist Russian forces attacking in the direction of Vesele. And in reverse, if Russians will be able to capture the village of Vesele first, they too will be able to support Russian attacks in the direction of Liptsi from northeast and east. This big water reservoir will do Russians a big favor by covering their left flank. Now, before the video continues, I want to ask your opinion on this whole situation. How fast and how successful Russian offensive here will be, and what settlement will fall first, a smaller village of Vesele or a bigger town of Liptsi. While you're at it, please do consider supporting my video by any means you consider necessary. A like, comment, and of course a subscription if you haven't subscribed yet will be more than enough. Thank you for considering it, and let's move on. From here, let's move slightly to the east and discuss the situation around the city of Vovchansk. Here, all throughout last 24 hours, Russians attacked across this entire front line in the direction of Staritsa, village of Bugruvatka, within Ogirtseve, and within the city of Volchansk as well. On this flank, they also assaulted the village of Vovchansky Hutory, and almost everywhere seen relative success. The first location where Russian forces seen some success was the village of Bugurovatka. According to multiple sources, one of them being military summary channel, they were able to successfully advance through this thick forest, capture about this much territory, and successfully enter the village itself, now fighting in its northern outskirts. From here, let's discuss the situation within the village of Ogirtseve, which had been recently fully captured by the Russians. This was confirmed not only by video footage, but also by both pro-Ukrainian and pro-Russian sources, so the fall of this village cannot be questioned. From here, let's move to the city of Vovchansk, which for now had become a major goal for the Russians to capture before anything else. The hard fighting here continues, as Russians were able to successfully maintain and hold on to their bridgehead within the northern and northwestern portions of the city. They were also able to withstand multiple Ukrainian counterattacks that were made in attempt to force Russians to withdraw. However, those attacks were unsuccessful and Russians were able to advance. Here is exactly how much territories that was. What is important to note that Russians have not stopped and are continuously attacking Ukrainians and storming the city streets, but obviously not without difficulties. The most difficult portion of this is this general area of what would seem to be high-rise buildings. Reports coming in from this general area suggests that Ukrainians are heavily using snipers to suppress and stop Russian advance. So as you can see, Russians will have some problems with this particular portion of the city, and its fall will allow Russians to control the entire Vovchansk city to the west of Vovcha River. So again, as most of the pro-Russian reporters in the media and on the battlefront suggests, this is not going to be an easy battle for the Russians, and the battle for Vovchansk just begun. From here, let's move all the way to the Bakhmut or Artyomovsk frontline, or I think it is fair to say Chasiv Yar frontline, where all throughout the last 24 hours, Russians continuously attacked in the direction of Grigorievka, Kalinivka, and yet again successfully entered the southern micro-district of the Chasiv Yar city. They were also able to advance along this rail line to the flank and rear of Ukrainian formations defending this said micro-district. First, let's discuss the situation around Kalinivka, as recently Russian soldiers were spotted here in this area, meaning that the battle for Kalinivka is either started already or about to start. With the fall of this village, Russians will be able to reach the canal from this area as well, solidify the front line, and help with attacks not only in the direction of Grigorievka, but also in the direction of Chasiv Yar micro-district. Of course, attacking across the canal in the direction of Chasiv Yar proper is also an option, and the fall of Kalinivka will surely allow Russians to do that. The Russians were also able to advance, like I said, along this rail line, which as you can see is conveniently covered by rather thick force lines. This allowed Russians to rather safely advance under the cover of thick foliage, and as a result they were able to successfully advance and capture about this much territory from the Ukrainian side. With it, as you can see, the Dacha area located to the north of the Chasiv Yar micro-district is now in danger of Russian capture, with those territories, as you can see, left by Ukrainians, and they are currently remain within the gray zone. Then, of course, let's discuss the Russian successful re-entering of the Chasiv Yar from this area as well. Here, as a result of successful storming operations, Russians were able to capture those territories in the process. Yet again, for the second time, they have entered this city and established a foothold. And again, it seems they have not stopped at that, as the recent video shows Russians attacking with a tank in the direction of those high-raised buildings. Here is the video itself. With this, I end today's video. Again, thank you all for your support. I really appreciate it. As always, humanity calls me to condemn all violence against human beings. Have a good day, and always remember, Russia will be free and great.